My name is Tawana Minor, and I proudly serve as SHRM-Atlanta president during its 50th anniversary year. Join us on an HR journey, along with past board members, presidents, and members.
First, I want to make it clear that I was not around to see these changes in the 60s, but as I understand it, being a lawyer who does employment law, that in the 1960s, there was tremendous change, primarily due to the laws that were being enacted on the federal front. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 made a complete change for companies and how they dealt with human resource matters. So changes in the way people applied for jobs has been significant.
Hi, my name is Greg. I'm the personnel manager here at the company. Just got back from the ASPA meeting, American Society of Personnel Administrators. Learning a lot of new things about the employment laws. You know, in the 60s we had Title VII and the Age Discrimination Act. We thought that was about it, but now here in the 70s we got the OSHA Act for safety, we got ERISA in 1974 for retirement benefits, and now we got the Pregnancy Discrimination Act, and if you do business with the government, you have to have an affirmative action plan now. Hard to keep up with all these legal things. Anyway, gotta sign off now. Heading down to Fulton County Stadium, hook up with my friend Ted Turner. Says he's got some crazy idea about having a 24-hour news network, calling it CNN Cable News Network or something like that. Crazy idea, never work. Anyway, gotta run.
The key word in the beginning of the 80s was personnel. So you had responsibility for the hiring, the firing, the payroll, benefits. It was more like a personnel administration job. In fact, anytime you see the personnel title today, it makes you think like there must be a paper pusher here, okay? And then the move was to human resources, where you got more involved with policies and processes, and then taking the human capital workforce and aligning that with the company's strategic business plan, so you became more of a planner and an executor. I'm Bernie, and I've been with SHRM-Atlanta since 1981, and I still can't solve a Rubik's Cube.
The 90s was the era when we started moving into PCs, which was huge. It was probably the biggest thing that happened in the 90s. And obviously before that, for the decade before that, there was a lot of growth, a lot of construction, and it was boom time for Atlanta. New jobs were here, it was a great place to come, and we had a lot of talent come in from out of the region and all across the country. In the 90s, for companies, a lot of it was growth. There was some downsizing and some shifts, but mostly Atlanta was a hot place to be, and maybe that's where Hot Atlanta came from. I'm Maryland. If you need me, beat me.
So the 2000s started off as a really tough decade for SHRM-Atlanta, and first couple years, because of the economy, were difficult. Kimberly Douglas came in and really whipped the chapter into shape and get us where we needed to be, and saw some tremendous growth in membership in the mid part of the decade, and has really continued on till today. And SHRM-Atlanta was the 8th largest city chapter in the country, and in this decade became the largest city chapter in the country. Well, I think the biggest impact of recruiting in the 2000s was the really getting into social media and technology, and the increase in volume. You know, volume has always been an issue in hiring, but it used to be not enough. We couldn't find enough good candidates, and now it's almost too many. And so just the tremendous increase in the use of technology to find candidates, to screen candidates, has been a huge change in the recruiting profession. So I'm Tom Darrow. Check me out on myspace.com.
In terms of the advances, I would say HR has just gone from a very paper-driven environment
manual environment to a technology-driven environment, which has allowed HR professionals to become more strategic and contribute more at a higher level because they're not so involved with all of the paper pushing that used to happen. So, you know, when you applied for a job, you may have mailed in an application, someone physically opened that and then reviewed that. Now we've moved to sending resumes via email, which is a much more reliable source. You get them in a nanosecond and you're able to open those up really quickly or put those into a system. So it's just made our lives as HR professionals more efficient, more reliable, and more consistent. I'm Tila Jackson, and 50 years ago, they didn't have these, and it makes my life a lot easier.
Thank you for joining us this evening on this 50-year journey. There's one thing for certain, SHRM-Atlanta will always be here for technology, innovation, and the future of HR. Who knows, by the year 2065, we may only have hologram interviews.